All right, guys, your homework Go Formative Rotations Day 2. I'm going over the numbers 4, 6, 9, and 10 for you. So the first one, number 4, I want to rotate my point, and my point is going to be at -3, -4. So -3, -4, and then my center of rotation, they're telling me, is -1, +2 right here. Well, I want to shift this guy back to my origin, which means I'm going to have to do a translation, and my translation is going to be x + 1, y - 2 to get this guy to go over and down. So now it's here, so I have to apply this same translation up to my point. So I'm going to add 1 and subtract 2, which is going to give me a new point of -2, -6. -2, -6 means me right here. Okay, so now it's just like I'm going to rotate it about my origin, which I know how to do. It's 270, doesn't tell me the direction, so I always go counterclockwise, the same direction as my quadrants. So I'm going to go over 90, over 180, over 270. So I know I'm going to end up here, which means I had to flip my points back and forth 3 times, which means I'm going to end up with a 0.62. But if I want to stay in this quadrant is a negative positive quadrant, which means I'm going to be -6, +2 right here. So my new point is going to be a -6, +2. So that was when I rotated this point about the origin. So now I have to undo my translation to shift it back. So if I undo my translation, I'm going to get x - 1, y + 2. So I'm going to subtract 1 and add 2 here, which means my final coordinate is going to be -7, 4. So I started with my point. I translated it so I could translate my entire picture so that it was going around my origin. I rotated it, and now I have to translate it back. And so I get -7, 4 as my answer. Number 6, same idea here. My point that I'm looking at is 3, 3. My point here, 3, 3, and my center is -1, 0. -1, 0. First thing I want to do is I want to get this point back to my origin, which means my translation is going to be x + 1, y. Nothing's happening with my y because it's already at 0. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 to my x here, which is going to give me 4, 3. So 4, 3 means I'm right here. I just moved my entire guy over 1 spot. So now I'm going to rotate this 180 counterclockwise, which means I'm going to end up over here in this quadrant. And that means I switched these guys, switched it once, switched it twice, which means I am back at 4, 3. But in order to be in this quadrant, I have to be a negative value. So it's -4, -3 right here. So my point is -4, -3. But then I have to translate it back, which means I'm going to do my xy goes to x - 1, y. So I'm going to subtract 1 from my x to undo it, which means -4 - 1 is going to be -5, and my y stays the same at -3. Number 9, this is my line of symmetry. I have the points -2, -5, and my other point is at 1, 3. First thing I want to do is I want to figure out what my slope is between these two guys. So let's figure out the slope here. So I'm going to do 3 - -5 over 1 - -2. Double negative becomes positive, so I'm going to get 8 over 3. So 8 over 3 is the slope of this line. So the slope of my line, because it's going to be somewhere over here, I don't know exactly where, but the slope of this line is going to be the opposite reciprocal, which is -3 over 8. The slope that I want is -3 over 8. And I have to figure out a point. What is a point on here? Well, I know it's going to be the average of these 2 points. So let's find the average. So I'm going to do -2 + 1 over 2, -5 + 3 over 2. I'm going to get -1 over 2 and -2 over 2, which is going to give me -1/2 and -1. So here is my point, and here is my slope. Now I'm going to do a slope. I'm going to use the point and slope formula. Remember, that's y - y1 is equal to m times x - x1. So I'm going to get y minus, and my point here is -1, equal to m, which is -3/8, times x minus, and my x1 is -1/2. double negative becomes positive. So I'm going to get y plus 1 is equal to, now when I distribute here, I get negative 3 over 8x, and negative 3/8 times 1/2 is negative 3 over 16. Now to get my y by itself, I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides, but when I do that, I have to combine like terms. I have to combine common denominators. So I got to change this negative 1, so I have a denominator of 16. Negative 1 is the same thing as saying negative 16 divided by 16. That's the same thing as saying 1. So I get y is equal to negative 3 over 8x. Negative 3/16 minus 16/16 is going to give me negative 19/16. And number 10, same idea. I have the point of negative 4, 5, and 1, negative 1. First thing I want to do is let's figure out what the slope is of this line, so I can use the opposite reciprocal to figure out the slope of my line of symmetry. So my slope here, negative 1 minus 5 over 1 minus negative 4, double negative becomes positive, so I get negative 6 over 5, which means the slope that I want to use, opposite reciprocal, is going to be positive 5 over 6. Then I have to figure out a point that is on here. So I know it's going to be the average of these 2 points. So I'm going to do negative 4 plus 1 over 2, 5 plus negative 1 over 2. I get negative 3 over 2, and 5 minus 1 is going to give me 4 over 2, which I'm going to get negative 3/2 and 2. So here is my slope, and here is my point that I want to use. Again, I'm going to use my point slope form. So y minus y1 is equal to m times x minus x1. I get y minus my y1 is 2. That's equal to my slope, which is 5 over 6. X minus, and my x1 is going to be a negative 3/2. Double negative becomes positive. So when I distribute here, I'm going to get y minus 2 is equal to 5 over 6x plus 15 over 12. And then when I add 2 to both sides, I have to, again, make this into where I have the same denominator. So 2 is the same thing as saying 24 over 12. 24 over 12 is the same thing as 2, and now I have a common denominator. So I get y is equal to 5 over 6x, and then 15 plus 24 is going to give me 39 over 12. But I can simplify this guy because 3 can go into both of these. So my final answer should say y is equal to 5 over 6x plus 13 over 4.